Hi, I'm Gail Thackeray, and we're talking about how to write a book and how to market it, and really concentrating on non-fiction books to raise your profile. So if you've got a brand, if you are a speaker or a coach, or if you've got a product to sell, we're talking about writing a book that's going to enhance what you're doing and really become the cornerstone to kind of raise your profile and help you get customers, help people know a lot more about you. All right, so we already went through a lot of that, and we got to the point where we're writing the core content or the mind dump. But before we do that, I just want to show you. So for your book's format, and we're talking about non-fiction books, either we're talking about a how-to kind of book, or we're talking about a journal, kind of a timeline book. So we're going to have for your book layout. So you'll have a copyright notice page. You'll have a title page. You'll have some blank spaces. You might have a foreword. That's if you can get somebody who've got some notoriety to give you a foreword. You may have an introduction. If it's a how-to, you want to, at the beginning of the book, you want to write about what they're going to learn in the book, because they're really interested in what are the major points, the things they're going to learn. But we can call that chapter 1, or we could put it here. You also might want to introduce yourself and your story, unless it's a storybook. So let's just say my story. Okay. And then at the end, when we finish, we might have an author page. This is where they can find information about you. There might be, more about the product. There might be other books that you've written. And in between all these chapters, this is your core content. Right? So for now, we're not even going to worry about this stuff and this stuff. In fact, we're going to add that in at the end. And this is going to be kind of pretty much template stuff. This is going to maybe take us one session at the very end. So we're going to jump right in, and we're going to start on this core content section, and then we'll kind of come back to this later. Okay, so I had mentioned before, the first step you're going to do is you're going to do your mind dump. And so what we're going to do is you're going to take a blank piece of paper or a notepad, or there are programs, you can do this on a computer if you like, and there are certainly author programs now that are pretty good at that, but I still like pen and paper, because this is just about putting a bunch of ideas down. So you're just going to sit and you're going to think about a bunch of different ideas that you've got your book and concepts that you're going to include. So I actually like to sit outside in the sunshine and do my mind dump. And this is a lot about kind of just, thinking. Right, so let's say I'm going to write a book about how to write a book, since I'm talking to you about it. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just jot down some just random notes that come to me. Okay, so what are some of the things I'm going to include? Well, I'm going to talk about like writer's blocks, creative style, kind of how you get into your motivation. Like some people find it easy to kind of get in that zone. Some people have a harder time. I'm going to talk about researching your subject. I'm going to talk about how your title has to be really exciting, and perhaps we're going to talk about researching titles, because we're going to do researching that on Google Analytics. That the opening chapter has to be really grab you, and in a journal book, that's going to be a timeline book, but it might not always be kind of the day one timeline. You might decide that that's not the most exciting thing in the book, so you might want to change that around and put something up front as a kind of a flashback sequence. Or you might want to, if it's a how-to book, that would be a great place to put exactly what you're going to learn. So let's do the opening chapter, what that's got to be all about. What else? The layout, we're going to say how you lay it out for a fiction and non-fiction book. That's going to be slightly different. So we're going to talk a lot about how people like for non-fiction bullet points and spacing and that kind of thing. So what else about the actual writing of the book? Oh, well, how many pages people are going to want, and that's going to be different for non-fiction or fiction. Why are you writing the book in the beginning? What's it going to do for you? And my angle is going to be more about you're creating branding, you're creating personal brand. You're also, it could be you have a business and you have a product. So it could be a story that you've got. So, you know, perhaps you have a life story where you had, say, a health issue and then you became a fitness coach, or you had some kind of experience and that's why you're now an expert or knowledgeable in your field. So why are you writing this book? And we are also going to talk a little bit about our story. That might be your entire book, your story, or that might just be a little part of it. And then we're going to talk more about the uploading up to Kindle, and then we're going to choose different styles and sizes. It is important what size book you have if you want to have the extended distribution. So I'm going to talk about that. We're going to talk about publishing deals. Like, should you get an agent, a publisher? So we're going to talk about agents, publishers. How easy is that, or not easy, or self-publishing? We're going to talk about Amazon, printing through other places. We're going to talk about your cover design of your book. Okay, so I'm just jotting random things. And this is probably going to take you a few hours of sitting there. And these are going to be like either sentences or just buzzwords that will remind you. You could also, at this stage, you're also doing some research. And so you may want to, at this stage, read some other people's books. I have scanned through people who have written books in your genre and just have a look at what they've done, because you might come up with some ideas, not really copy them, but maybe you'll come up with, they'll have an idea, they'll write something in a book and say, okay, yes, I need to remember to make sure I put that in my book. So I might read some books about how to write a book. There's a lot of them out there, and I might find some different things to add to my mind dump. Okay, so here's my mind dump. Very rough. As you can see, it's on a piece of scrap paper, and here are just kind of random ideas and notes that I'm making, right? So this is where you're going to really be sitting, thinking about it, and that's why I like to do it kind of sitting outside. This could be spread out over time, but I think if you sit down for a few hours and just, start writing it out, you'll find all kinds of buzzwords and things you're going to include. Okay, so what do you do with this mind dump? All right, so now we need to take these random ideas and I want to organize them into kind of groups of ideas. Okay, so, the uploading to Kindle, that's going to be one idea. I'm going to put this stuff I'm going to put together here, so I'll make that one idea. I'm going to include that, needs to go with that. I'm going to include that one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to group this into 10 or 15 ideas. Now, these 10 or 15 ideas are going to be kind of the first draft of your chapters. Yeah, you might move some around, you might merge some ideas, you might expand on them, but we're starting with 10 to 15 ideas, okay? All right. So at this point, now again, if you've got a computer program, the computer program may have ways to do this. I still like to do this the old-fashioned way, and I like to do it either with index cards or sticky note cards. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take sticky notes, actually preferably a little bit bigger than this is probably better. I'm going to take 10 to 15 sticky notes and make one sticky note for each of my group of ideas. So let's say one of my ideas is, why write this book? And under this sticky note of why write this book, we're going to talk about it increases your branding. Even if you have a product, it's going to raise information about your product. We're going to talk about how even if you had a catalog to give to people, that people are not really going to pay attention, but if you have a book, it's like content. So I'm going to put that's like content. Okay, so that is one group of ideas, and we're going to start to, this is my little stack of books that I published, and we're going to start to, I'll put this up on the board here. So that is one group of ideas. Okay, what else have I got down on my mind dump page here? Not in the right order, but I'm going to do uploading to Kindle. What are we going to talk about in this particular section of ideas? When we're talking about uploading to Kindle, we're going to talk about what kind of paper you want to have, what sizes. We're going to talk about your ISBN number, getting that for you. We're going to talk about the different formats. We're going to talk about the choices that you're going to have. The choices like, are you going to do the Kindle direct publishing programs where you're going to allow readers to take your book and read it as part of their unlimited library? So let's put down on Kindle Unlimited. We're going to have a choice of pricing. Okay, so that's going to be another group of ideas that we're going to have that I've called uploading to Kindle, and this one I've called why write this book. Okay, what else we're going to do? Motivation. So when you get into writing your book, we're going to talk about writer's blocks, issues that you might come across, how our creative zone, how we get into that. Everybody's different. So some people very easily can get into the creative zone. Some people have kind of like a ceremony, like maybe they need to meditate first, or they got to do certain things or set up their room in a certain way. So we're going to talk about how to be motivated, and a lot of this just about kind of getting down and starting. That's people's biggest issue. So we're going to talk a lot about motivating. I've called it right now. We're also going to talk, what else have I got my mind dump page? We've got like non-fiction versus fiction, or how-to books versus like a journal or a timeline book. So we're going to talk about how we've got different layouts for that, and we're going to talk about the page numbers. People who are interested in non-fiction generally want shorter books if they're a how-to book. If they're a journal book, they're a little bit more like a novel. So here I've called this one the non-fiction one. What else do I have on my mind dump? Let's talk about promoting your book, marketing your book. Marketing your book. That's going to be my header. And under here, I'm going to talk about the Kindle free book promotion, and how when you do the free book promotion, you're going to think that, if you're giving away the book for free, everybody's going to want it. But actually, there's so much competition now. We're going to talk a lot about that. There are actually even sites that we're going to talk about that you can list for or even pay to be on. Sometimes you have to pay for marketing in order to get your free book out. So we're going to talk about that. Okay, how about making money? Money for your book, right? Because are we interested in the money, the few dollars we're going to make on books? Yeah, you could make a lot of money writing books. But are you interested in that? Are you interested in your market share? Are you interested in how many people are going to see? So market versus dollars. We're going to talk about people who professionally are non-fiction writers. So people who just write books non-fiction professionally, and they're really just banging out books, sometimes different subjects, sometimes under a pseudonym. They're not interested in that brand awareness or creation. So we're going to talk about, yes, we want to make as much money as we can, but our biggest concern is getting the books out there. So we might be more concerned about the market share and less concerned about how much money we make on each book. Okay, so as you can see, what I'm doing is I'm writing a header for each one of these groups of ideas, and underneath I'm writing. Now, only probably I can read this writing. You probably can't read that. It's very rough draft. Okay, and I've got a title on each one of these sticky notes. So these are kind of my first draft at chapters. They're not going to be the final chapter. And these are not going to be the chapter titles. This is just something for now. It's a placeholder. So just like you have a working title for your book, it's not the exciting title. We need to do a lot of research on what titles really grab people and sell. And the same thing for chapters. So why write this book? Okay, that's not really a great chapter header, but that's my temporary chapter header. And these are the notes that I've got under my temporary chapter. Now, I might decide that some of these actually probably going to take more than one chapter. So let's say that the chapter on motivation, your writing styles, your creative writing, having writing block, getting prepared to write, tips if you get stuck. I'm going to say that maybe that is actually going to be 2 chapters instead of 1, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knock a couple of things off the list here, and I'll call my next one, I'll just call it Motivation 2 for now. And I know that I'm going to split this chapter into 2 sections because it's going to be a little bit longer, right? So I'm going to move that over there. Right, and then you may decide, well, this kind of, there's not much in there. I'm going to add these 2 chapters together. So this is a great way to, once you've got your 10, 15 ideas down, you're going to start playing around with them and moving them around. And I love the fact that it's a sticky note on a book, because I can say, okay, why write this book? Oh yeah, that probably should go first. But you know what I really need as my first chapter is what you're going to learn in this book. What you're going to learn, because in a how-to book, people want to know up front what they're learning. So let's move everything over for a minute. That could be my second in my order. So what you're going to learn right now, and I don't have enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I don't have enough. Should have about 10 to 15, but I'm just giving you examples. So that might go first. This might go second. Let's say I want to move these around. I want that to go first. Let's say I want this to go next, and then I'm going to move these around. And you see how easily you can play with these and sit and look at them and say, okay, does the order flow? So I love the fact that they're sticky notes and you can pull them and move them around until you're getting this flow. So these are going to be your draft chapters. You've got your chapter header, which you're not going to keep, and you've got your notes of what's included. And you might want to look at this a little bit more and say, okay, why write this book? Okay, I need to make sure I add in also some other notes here. And how about this one here for what did I put here? Marketing your book. No, I think that one needs to go a little bit further down, okay? So that can go there. And that needs to be, okay, this needs to go up here pretty near the front. Okay, so you see how I'm moving things around until you get a nice order and adding to things. And even if you're still doing some research and you're coming up with some other notes and ideas, you can easily say, oh yes, I need to add that idea. I'm going to add that in here. So what this is now is we've got the basic flow. We've got your basic temporary chapters. This is the core content of the book. Remember, we're still going to add at the beginning, we're going to still add all those notices, the intros, the forwards, and at the end we're still going to add the extra stuff about how to get to know you, or how to follow up on your website, that kind of thing. But this is our core content, and this is where it's really going to start to evolve, and you can start seeing your book laid out. And this is so important. This is I can't tell you how many writers just basically start at chapter 1 and start writing and editing as they're going along, and it's a completely different mindset. This is a completely different mindset to when we actually start writing. And so it's really important that you do it in a way, you do this structure so that we're doing all this and we're doing the whole structure to start with. And then we're getting down to each of the chapters, and only then do we actually start the writing where we're being creative. All right, so now we've got to this point. What we're going to do is we can at this point, if you like, transfer them to a computer document. So I would like to take each one of these and make a Word doc for it. Now, there's programs that will help you and organize it, or you could simply use Word doc. And so if you're going to use Word doc, you will number these. Now, you've already put them in an order. Go ahead and write an order. This is going to be number 1. This is going to be number 2. This is going to be number 3. This